why do we view the word intimacy as not being masculine?
Because it's the opposite.
Why?
That's the you're strong or you're gay scenario. So if you're too intimate, and this is like,
being soft. You don't want to be soft.
Yeah, because like men are hard. Men like can take a hit. Men don't cry.
Oh, you buying her flowers? You old soft ass nigga.
Yeah, she must. You must want some pussy. Like, you know, like
pussy whipped ass.
There's like there's a million negative connotations to it.
Intimacy and sex doesn't necessarily have to be hand in hand. Like, you can run her some bath water and rub her feet and be intimate, or sit and have a conversation over music and be intimate.
So is that a misrepresentation of what intimacy is in the eyes of, from a misogynistic basically standpoint?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
it's like both. Like, it's both sides.
So like
it's a reflection of the classic definition of masculinity.
Masculinity doesn't really offer like much of a range for like sensitivity and softness, when if we take just like general conversations and sayings, we always say like, well, have a pair of balls, like grow a pair. Like, we're literally talking about balls. The whole point is like, it's like the whole focal point of our like fertility, our prominence, like all of the gloating that we end up doing. At the same time, like, they're extremely sensitive. You kick them, you're down. Like, masculinity in itself has space for sensitivity, but like if we don't allow it to, then we end up getting to like points where we end up having like stacked and built up emotions and things that like end up like erupting violently. We talk about blue balls all the time. Like, it's like get money, fuck bitches, quote unquote, like for many men. At the same time, it's like, if I haven't got my nut off today, or if I haven't like actively like done something to relieve myself of like the sexual tension, then it's gonna erupt from somewhere and I'm gonna be a mess. In the same concept, masculinity has to work like that too. If we're not like being sensitive or like being willing enough to let those things like break free, then you have an emotional built up of mess, and we end up having generations and like communities of men that are like either broken or like deeply affected by not releasing what they need to.
When you look at like the term intimacy is like an opposing quality. So like I think in the more modern version of masculinity, I think modern masculinity is more about like responsibility. It's not, so modern masculinity isn't a set of like qualities, it's a set of actions. If that makes sense. So like I think in older masculinity, you were strong, like you had muscles, you had a beard, you know, like you had quality, like things about you. You were strong, you were this, you were that. And now there's like, are you responsible? Are you like taking care of things and people?
my granddad is a perfect example of that, because so his thought was literally just like, again, as long as the bills are paid, what else would you need? But the idea of like saying I love you, that wasn't something that was necessarily necessary, or like buying an anniversary gift, because just like recently, my grandmother got him a gift, said happy anniversary. The gift was on the bed for him, and he got it. He didn't tell her thank you, and he didn't say I love you or happy anniversary. And to him that wasn't problematic because of the generation he comes from.
These things are part of the lack of knowledge that was had back then.
Yeah.
Now that we have more knowledge and we have better understanding, the wisdoms have been learned and starting to be passed down. It's like, well, but a provider means more things than what we thought it meant, or what my dad thought it meant, or what my granddad thought it meant. It's like, yo, wait a minute. Does it matter how much money you bring home if your kids never see you?
Yeah.
Are you actually present just because the money is present?
So what do you really provide?
What are you providing? Because at the end of the day, when this is where again it goes back to the classes thing, because people were trying to rise in class.
Yeah.
It was like, oh well, you know, in the poorer families where there are like some more struggles, it's kind of like, oh well, you don't have a choice. Yeah, you don't have a choice. If you're in a single parent home, especially if it's single. I'm not gonna say anything to knock single fathers, but especially in a single parent home as a mother, it's almost like you know, like now, like you, it's almost, I've heard it said before, like there's a point in time where, you know, I grew up in that household and it's like, yo, you know, you're the mother and the father. And it's like, no, you're just the mother.
Yeah, you'll never be a father.
You're just the mother. It's
You
not
try.
to knock anything from you. Yes, maybe, I know it was cute before when we used to be like on Father's Day, shout out to the mothers, but as I got older, I thought about it, I was like, no, that's real disrespectful. You're not a father.
You're a mother.
You're compensating for the lack
Yeah.
of a father presence does not make you a father.
Right.
It's just the way as if you're a single dad. You're compensating for the lack of a mother. Just because you're nurturing and you're doing things that are necessary
you can never touch
for
a child
providing
like a
and
woman
taking care.
can,
Exactly.
you know?
You're still not
And vice
replacing the role of that.
Right.
Which is why a lot of single parents do try to look for the relationship, and they're more meticulous about that, because it's like, and that's why I tell people all the time, like for me, like I'm not saying I wouldn't date someone with a child, but I also understand that there's, even if you try to say like right now it's not a thing, at some point in time, if I want to take this to the next level, it's going to become a factor. Your child is a part of your life. If you don't value that, I definitely don't want to have anything to do with you. You understand what I'm saying? So like I said, going back on focus, this concept of being a provider has now been better understood, and it's like, oh well, you know, providing also requires presence. There's you know, you being together in this household is actually a relationship. You have to nurture this relationship. We understand what relationship is. Even with parenting and teaching the kids, like we understand what parenting is better. We understand what nurturing is better. You know, there are certain things that our parents did that certain parents in this generation that they need to do because they're not nurturing. And there's certain things that our parents did that they needed to not do because it wasn't nurturing.
The foundation of anything is communication, whether we're talking about masculinity or we're talking about like military tactics, whatever the case may be. If you don't have communication, you don't have anything. And so your first example of communication is upbringing. You know what I mean? Your parents or whoever is responsible for raising you, you communicate with those people the most. You soak in everything for the first, 10, 15 years of your life, and then you spend that other middle section trying to depict, okay, I don't like this. Okay, this might not be right. You know, I'm gonna skew this a little bit. Oh, maybe this isn't right. Okay, I like this. I'm gonna keep it. And I feel like that's the stage that a lot of us are in, as well as the younger generation. They're kind of taking all the things that they've learned from the generation before them, and they're deciding for themselves what's actually right. What kind of is in sync with our generation and things that are going on now that's timely, as well as, you know, how they want to express themselves in relation to the things that they've been taught. So I feel a lot of times we'll take masculinity, we'll take the societal example of something, and we'll let that influence how we communicate. So Alan, for example, Alan's one of my best friends. I'll talk to Alan about anything, you know what I mean? We might have some quote unquote non-masculine conversations or just certain interactions that people outside that don't know our connection would be like, what? That's kind of weird, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I feel like once you reach that level to where society doesn't necessarily influence how you communicate with another person, that's whenever you actually have that connection that you're supposed to have. Not in the sense of he's a guy, I'm a guy, or she's a female, I'm a male, and that's how we're going to interact with each other based on that merit. But because he's an individual, I like his personality, I love his soul, and we have a soul connection, you know what I mean?